What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Danny the Bull here with Ron. What's going on, brother?
What's up, Danny? Everybody.
Been some rough time in the market. Timeline's actually pretty brutal, man. A lot of people questioning whether or not this is the end, whether or not we'll have an alt season. And we've been hearing, are we going to have an alt season? And people were saying that we're not, and this time is different. Even before this, market crash. And I think that just like totally exasperated it. So I know you did a live yesterday. I caught it. A lot of good stuff you raised. Wanted to, jump on and with you and have a conversation because we're always having some good conversations around this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I did it Danny the Bull style yesterday. Made a spreadsheet and captured some of the data. I think it was interesting, when you really go back and look at all these macro things that people talk about. And one of the points I made earlier in the stream is, you really hear most of these things when people are just like real indecisive, real undecided, and they're really digging for answers. And that's when they start looking at all these macro things and try to get a better idea. At least that's kind of what I believe.
Now that was a good point you made. I think it's absolutely true, and that's part of what I was saying. When people were saying that no alt season because of the dilution, right? I felt like people were like looking for answers to fit, why things weren't meeting their expectation. I think that was a really good point you made, because I think that's exactly what people do when things aren't going their way or they're trying to figure out where they stand in this market. They're people are just looking for answers.
Yeah. And, maybe the answers are simpler than all these complicated things. And if it is over or whatever, then you never had a chance to start with. I mean, this wouldn't just be different in a few ways. It would be a complete overhaul of what we had seen in the past. You can go on and on about that. I brought that link up on CoinGlass I'd seen before, where not a single one of the 30 top indicators had been hit. So not a single one. So, some of them you may be like, okay, maybe we don't get the pi cycle top everyone's looking for it, but for all 30 to not have been hit at all, and then it didn't even do a multiple from its previous all-time high, like 60%. Like, what kind of bull market is that? 60% before the previous all-time high.
Those are rookie numbers.
Same thing from the bottom to the top. That's another way to measure it. So not even a 10x. When it was a 21x last cycle. So a lot of it's too much for me to think that that's it.
Yeah, same here. I'm of the mind that this is, first of all, Bitcoin is prone to this sort of correction. This is nothing new. We had a bigger correction last cycle when Bitcoin dropped, I think, like 50%. It's had multiple drops of 30%. This hasn't even been that bad Bitcoin wise. I think what's really freaking people out is their altcoins, because everyone's in altcoins. If we were just talking about Bitcoin, I think everyone would be fine with this. Like, it wouldn't really be an issue, but we feel it exponentially more because people are front running altcoins this time around.
Yeah. And that's, you hear so many people now, I wish I had just done all Bitcoin and stuff like that. The alt gains, it's a finite window when you get those. But for people saying, I talked about this in the stream too, for people saying like, that was the altcoin rally season, whatever you want to call it, was end of 2023, beginning of 2024. I don't buy that either. Before the halving, for one. And then all these macro indicators that are so important now, they were all going down at the time that people were like these same people would say that or point to, well, it can't go up because of M2 money supply or whatever macro indicator. And you look back at some of those times when alts were going up and M2 money supply was going down. And it's almost always lived its whole existence in an uptrend, and it was actually going down then. So what did people have to say about that? Markets are going to do what they're going to do at the end of the day,
Yeah. And why do you think they're doing what they're doing now? You think it's the Trump uncertainty?
I don't think that helps anything.
Yeah.
I really think before the Bybit hack, it was looking prime to make a run at the top of the range that it was trading in. I say this a lot. It's not where the price at, it's what it looks like to get there. And I was bearish the other day, like at the price action I was seeing. And normally I say it's at the bottom of a range. This is when you want to buy, but not in this case. And that's why I feel the move that was heading towards the upside, it was like what you want to see to go up to the top of the range. And it had been in such a tight range for so long. It was like 14 daily candles that were just all like dojis and trading range days. That's a sign of an impending breakout. So when you do get the breakout in one direction, it's probably going to be pretty significant. And that's why, I had seen it when it was just hugging the bottom of that triangle it was in, and I didn't think it looked good. So, it's not just where price is, it's how it gets there. And that's why in this case, when it's at the bottom of the range, it's like, doesn't look good.
Yeah. Let's see who we got in here. Do you want to pull up a chart so you can look at how things are looking now? I'll see who we got in here. We got Dino Dragon in here. He's not scared, so stubborn. He's buying more this week. And then you got Omi Child. It's canceled. The change of the world is next. So you got, I see this everywhere, right? People on two different ends of the spectrum, which is, kind of par for the course, I think, in crypto at times like this. Smells fun in the house. What's going on, brother? Frank, we got G Money, Timo, Raven in the house, Chuck to a buck. Let's go. Yeah. So you talked about, the way things went down and the way we broke down made you think that the worst was not yet over.
Yeah. And I mean, we're still probably going to go lower, but we'll at least have some. I don't think it's going to keep doing bars like this day after day. I mean, at some point, even people shorten, they got to take profits or whatever. So I think you'll start to at least get some dojis or some green bars. I would love for it to just maybe go down to where the CME gap was, 77, find strong support, wick up, and that was it. Call it a day. Let's get back to business. The thing that's really concerning, like when you talk about is it over type talk, is the weekly candle. This is very concerning, but there's still time in the week. That's why I would love for it to just go down here, hit here about 77, and just wick back up strong and get back up to somewhere in here before the end of the week, weekly close. That would be good. So it's almost like in this case, I think the faster we go ahead and go down, because when you have a breakout like this in a price discovery, it was the same thing with Bitcoin in the 50s last market cycle. When it goes up through that really fast and doesn't build any structure, well, when it goes back down into that, it's going to go down through it fast too, because it doesn't have like historical levels where people are bought and traded at and lots of volume. So I knew if it broke down in this range that it's very likely that it could just kind of knife through the 80s. But don't forget that over here in the 70s, through here, this is an extremely strong level for Bitcoin. So it's going to take a whole lot to push down through this level now. But there's this weekly candle is not good. That's the kind of thing. This is the kind of move that starts a downtrend or start of a bear market or whatever. That is legit. This a weekly candle on high time frames like this, that's not good. But there's some things that to look at. I talked about this CME gap here, and this was the measure move from the triangle. If you take this here, that's what it is. Here, didn't even have it exact, I guess, like that. And then you take it to where it breaks out at. It's right at around that CME gap. So when you have confluence, two things pointing to it. So and we had got a move like this last. Let me go back to the
August.
Yeah, we had got a move like this in August, but here is what is very different. And that's what I was hoping, because after yesterday's daily candle, it looked very similar to this. You had a breakout below the range. This one, the body closed right there at where the lows were. It was kind of the same thing yesterday. It closed just below, but it was low enough that you don't really count that so much as a clear definitive break of structure, that had the wick. So it was hopeful that maybe we could get back in the range today.
We were at 89 this morning, right, which is right at the bottom of the range.
Mm-hmm. So you see what happened to this next daily candle, but this is where smaller time frames are your friend. They can really
guide you.
Stupid chart. I'm sorry, it can take me a second to scroll back.
That's right.
Hourly. Sorry, I mean you're like where you want to be on the chart, and you switch time frames, and it like resets you all the way to the beginning. But this is what you want to. This is how you tell these things. This is how you look at it and how you read price action and candles. And you saw I posted about this morning in Telegram, so I'm not just before it went down so much. So it's not like I'm just saying, yeah, see, this is what happened. Yeah. I told you guys.
I mean, last week you said that when we were in the tightening range, that it's going to break out one way or the other, up or down. And when it breaks out, it'll break out big. And that's what happened. But it happened, down.
Yeah. And I do think before the Binance hack that it was looking pretty good. I think that the way it was breaking out of the range, it was looking good. Good bull bars, not much wick, full bodies. And then the Binance hack, or not Binance, Bybit. And yeah, and I mean, ETH held up well after that, which was looking back now, it was probably, I don't even say manipulation or what. I think the exchanges maybe were propping it up a little bit and then getting people bullish for one, for the real dump maybe. I mean, there's been so many reports of manipulation and the big exchanges sending their crypto to Wintermute and Wintermute just, suppressing price or whatever.
Yeah. The thing about manipulation is that everyone talks about manipulation when the price is going down, but when the price is going up, they talk about why everything is going up. It's like the bullish catalyst, it's like the perfect storm for crypto. And so everyone celebrates when it's going up without, thinking about those guys pushing it up also.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't really, cry manipulation too much. It doesn't really matter if that's what it is, and that's what it is. It's easier. These things that you're seeing in crypto, they can't do that in stock. But at the same time, then people don't want regulation in crypto. Like you can't have it both ways. So, this is the space that you're choosing to be in. This is part of what happens and how it goes. It's still heavily unregulated, and these are the kind of things that happen. So it was August 24th, I'm quite sure, is when we got the push down. Yeah. So you get the so this isn't good, but you had a long wick. So this is the hourly. All right. So what do you get after this? It goes up, you could say like maybe along here is probably the bottom of the range. Here we can put a line there just as a reference. And you got the 200-day EMA right there, which is a significant EMA for Bitcoin. So after this, you don't get trending candles down. It doesn't continue the move. And if you're saying this is where the bottom of the range was, then it's staying above that and finding support when it hits that line where these previous lows were.
Yeah.
Okay, so it went down. Okay, here it is. So regardless, so same kind of thing. That was like the first leg, the second leg, whatever you want to call it. Same kind of thing. You get these candles down some, but look, outside bar, bullish engulfing candle right after that. You're not just getting big bear bars rejecting off key points. So as it goes up, you don't get rejections from key levels. Like at this point this is a significant point right here where it broke down. Where it got here, you didn't get any rejection. That bar right there closed clearly above it, and then you had another bar after that. And this is not, when we look at what's happening now, this is not what you see at all. You're seeing bull bars mixed in here. You're not seeing, you're getting some wicks, some overlapping bars, some dojis. It's not continuing down. And what was really concerning this morning was, sorry, stupid. All right. was when it came back up to the range. Okay, so through last night to the morning, rejection, and that's a bad rejection. Look at the candle. It engulfed, outside bar engulfing the previous candle. All right, made a little double bottom. So you got some hope here. Maybe we got a little something going on. Then wick off the range. Tried to have another attempt, couldn't even make it up there. Another attempt, wick off the range. And this is the line I already had drawn in. This isn't something I drew in today. So how many rejections is that? 1, 2, 3. I mean, you can count that as a 4, really. 5, and then another bearish candle, like outside bar, bullish engulfing. 4 rejections, 2 engulfing candles to the previous candle, and then 2 wicks. And that's exactly what I said in the stream last night. If you see it coming up to this range and you see it rejecting with bearish candles, then that's kind of
bears are in control.
Yeah, that's what it's telling you. You know, that people are selling when it gets to that range, and they're gonna fight to push it down. You know, it's a good little wick right here, but I mean, you kind of have that there. This isn't enough to stop all that. The daily candle, not much of a wick on that. So if this was kind of like the candle yesterday, like back from August or September, whatever it was, what did you get the next day? You got a little green candle. You know, from when here it started, you know, it started the day Asian session, like when trade, you know, after the daily close, and you're getting like overnight in the US, you had a little green candle. And that's what we were just looking at on the hourly when it was coming up here to this zone. But as it started rejecting on this zone, and just say the body's like down here, then, you know, that's not what you were seeing the previous time at all. You know, so that's how you use multiple time frames, kind of put it together, even though you want to wait till candle close. But in this case, you know, you're kind of starting the New York session. You're seeing it reject off this even before it's like 10 o'clock, where the real big boys are going to pull up and start throwing their money out there. So it's just, I was hoping it would be like we saw earlier from like August last year, but it was just obvious from the price action that that was not it. And it was, you know, when we saw it rejecting off this zone on lower time frames, very high probability it was going to keep going lower today.
Yeah. So you're short-term bearish, still long-term bullish?
Yeah. Now, I will say I don't like this weekly candle. But let's just see where it closes at. We still got a lot of days before the weekly close. And then we want to see how the follow through is. I mean, if you're scared to death about this is the start of a bear market, then, and you want to get out at any kind of legitimate signal, all right, well, this candle closes like this towards this low like that, that's somewhat of a legitimate signal breaking out of this range. And if you're trying to catch the top, or so to speak, which I know 84 doesn't feel like the top, but in these kind of broader market, higher time frame terms, if it was going to a bear market, that would definitely be a good place to sell. So if it's just too much pain for you, and you think, you know, that the risk is too great if it is going into a bear market, then after this weekly close, hey, do what you got to do. I'm not going to do that. I'm definitely going to wait to see how the week opens up. I know the game I'm playing. I knew when it was not looking good in this symmetrical triangle, it wasn't looking good on smaller time frames up here. When it got here, you know, that bar right there, that was, you close below the previous, I mean, however many bars, you got like way over here to where you found price was low. So when it closes below that many previous bars, not a good sign. And then consolidating right at the trend line, and then that was the sign. That was when day traders started selling and shorting. That was probably the signal when they really started putting sell pressure on, most likely.
How much of this you think is tied to like traditional markets? S&P had, I think, 3 or 4 days in a row red. I think today they closed actually slightly green. But I mean, they coughed up like 3-4%. Let me see, 4.5. I mean, it's down. The S&P is down almost 5%, which may not seem like a lot, but 5% on the S&P is like 20% on Bitcoin. You know, I mean, it was up, I think, 7% or 8% over the last 6 months or something. So it coughed up a lot of that.
Yeah, and so it started the day okay. And it's green, but a little doji, not anything much. You're probably gonna get a little more down after this leg, but I mean, it never helps when you have the stock market not doing good. I mean, there's been examples before where we've seen Bitcoin decouple and the stock market maybe doing one thing and Bitcoin does another. When Bitcoin, it can have a mind of its own. If it goes into honey badger mode or whatever, it doesn't care what the stock market is doing. It doesn't care what DXY is doing, all those things. But generally speaking, on most days, it is correlated. And if the stock market is not doing good, well, yeah, it's going to be tougher for Bitcoin.
Yeah, both the Nasdaq and the S&P have been hit hard recently. The Trump tariffs. I think today today the market dumped hard. Bitcoin dumped hard when Trump announced 25% on Europe.
Yep, I saw it. I texted my buddy Eric. I said, "Fucking Trump, man, he needs to chill out with his stuff." And I knew that was not going to be good with the 25. I mean, maybe like long term or even midterm, it'll end up being a good move. I think normally he does these things in negotiating tactics, like he's not really wanting to keep a 25%, or maybe he is. I don't know, but I think probably it's a negotiating tactic.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what he's thinking, but I tend to think it's a negotiating tactic. It's like the carrot and the stick, you know what I mean? Like, and he's baiting people and using his leverage to get what he wants out of them. But what makes you, I'm of the opinion that this is painful, correction, and we will recover and go higher this year. I don't think the top is in on Bitcoin. You said that you're long-term still bullish. What makes you think long-term bullish still?
Well, I'm being objective. That candle, that weekly candle, is not good. So I'm not disregarding that, but we really hadn't got much of a pullback this whole bull market. The move that we looked at in August, September, that was like the most that you had, and it wicked up immediately. So you really hadn't even got a good pullback. It's just alts. The longer BTC ranges, normally alts get weaker and weaker. And you have your little narrative pumps and little things like that during those times. But generally speaking, alts get weaker the longer BTC ranges. People get bored or whatever. So that's what has been the most pain for people. But keep in mind this too. And I've talked about this a lot in streams, but this whole like BTC dominance has to hit 70% narrative. And I've kind of said I think the 70% BTC dominance is actually irrelevant. But if you look at 17 and 21, it made a lower high. So I think it's logical to think that we're making a lower high this cycle too with BTC dominance. And in that case, there's more money in alts than you've had in the previous cycles. Yeah, not just more money, but a larger percentage of the pie in crypto is in alts. So I mean, there's a lot of people with money in alts and a lot of interest and all these things you hear about, well, it's got to be quantitative easing, it's got to be M2 money supply, all these things. I looked at that last night where you can see plenty of times where Bitcoin went up in the bear markets and it didn't have quantitative easing or M2 money supply was whatever. It's just it can, at the end of the day, it can do what it wants to do. But because of alts is what has really messed people up psychologically this cycle.
Yeah, people are mind fucked over the alts for sure. I mean, like I said, if people were just looking at Bitcoin or just holding Bitcoin, they wouldn't be feeling as much pain. There wouldn't be as much nervousness and anxiety. I think also if we were 2 months back, if this were, let's say, December, I don't think people would be as anxious. It's the fact that people, anticipated that end of February 2025, year after the halving, it's alt season. My bags are about to 5, 10x, 100x, all those numbers that we have built into the head. So it's also, possible. We only have, it's been 2 cycles really, right? That we have full on alt season. Before that, Bitcoin, we didn't have too many alts early on. So we really look towards 2 market cycles of data, which is really not a lot, right? It's 2 periods of time. When you look at like the stock market has 100 years of history, right? So this is still an evolving, and a maturing asset class. So, if people were looking at last cycle and they were comparing it off 2017, it was similar, but it was also slightly different, right? We had, the double top, we had things topping out at different times in the market. And so I think that's a large part of it, is that everyone, and myself included, I thought that, February, and by end of February, I thought we were moving up. I thought alts were moving up. But I think that's also part of the pain.
Yeah, I don't like going down like this. I was fine with it continuing to range, and I'd always, I'd maintain, well, as long as BTC looks pretty good, then everything's, relatively intact. And that's why I'm saying right now, well, that now BTC doesn't look too good. Now, is this the kind of move that starts a bear market? That weekly candle is. Yes, it is. But I'm relying on other data as well, not just that. But that's why I'm saying, the weekly candle does close like that. If you're scared, if you're really scared and you're like, I can't lose anymore, at least I can walk away now with what I have, or whatever the case is, then, that's the decision that you have to make. I'm not going to do that. There, another thing I talked about on the stream last night, the 13, 17, and 21, the cycle peak was December, and November, in those 3 market cycles. So why wouldn't you think it would be later in the year, or maybe even later than that? Lots of people who, I guess they're smart, have speculated on lengthening cycles for Bitcoin for a while, that as the asset class matures, that's what kind of makes sense. As the market cap gets bigger, that the cycles should get longer. Now, so if we don't have that at all, then you never had a chance at all. If this was it, then you truly never had a chance to make any kind of life-changing gains. And you probably did lose some money, but you can't win if you don't play. That's the game of crypto. So that's why I'm being objective. If this weekly candle closes like that, that's not good. And then you got to make a decision on, do I have conviction? Do I believe in the 4-year cycle model? All these, like these other things we talked about, none of those top indicators hit, none of them. You haven't had any mania phase. You haven't had, all this diamond hand, hodl narrative. I mean, you see some of that, but not like last cycle. Like when it's April, May, and even October last cycle, like you just seen all this diamond hand, hodl, because you have to like condition people to buy the downtrend. So that's why I don't think these market makers and stuff like that, they don't want people, like when it's bear market time, they don't want you to think it's bear market time. They want you in a buying mode. They want, like, it's almost like you brainwash people in these few months to where it's all about, hodl and diamond hand and develop this whole narrative or whatever. That's where they want your head at when it's bear market time, not scared. That's not when they want the bear market to come.
Yeah, I mean, typically markets do not bottom out or top out when there's extreme fear in the market. They top out at euphoria and they bottom at extreme fear, right? This is typically how things play out.
And people can say, well, the top was, 109 or whatever it was and stuff like that. Even that wasn't a mania phase. I mean, I'm sure the fear and greed index was a lot more towards the greed side, but that was far from any kind of mania phase at all. I mean, in my estimation, that was just kind of like things just really getting kicked off. When you look at previous cycles, really, some people don't even really start counting it until they broke the previous all-time high, and that's when the banana zone happens. So that's why I still think, I don't think the bull market is over, but there could be more down to come. I think best case scenario, we just go ahead, rip the Band-Aid off, get down to that CME gap. Hopefully there'll be a lot of strong buying, wick back up, get back to business, let the market find a home, some kind of structure, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, sentiment can shift really fast, and it doesn't take too long in crypto for momentum to shift around, and the feeling will be totally different. And we talked about, the pi cycle top or different indicators or whatever that, historically have called the top. But this is the pi cycle top, which is when the short-term trend, connects with the long-term trend to show that the market's overheated. Called the top last cycle. It hit in May, which ended up being kind of, the top. We double topped last cycle, but it called it in May. Previous cycle, it called it right here in what was that, March or February of 2018. So right here, we have not, we haven't had a crossover. We haven't seen a pi cycle top yet. Right now, it's actually projected out. If you extrapolate it out, it's projected for like January 2026.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, in my mind, when I think about, is this the end? I'd have to ask myself, is the macro bull run over for the stock market? Because I do think we're correlated, heavily correlated. And my answer to that is, I don't think so. I think we just hit new all-time highs last week. People forget that the S&P 500 just hit a new all-time high, I think 6 days ago or something. It was just last week. Europe stock market just hit a new all-time high last week. You've got, you talked about money supply just now starting to increase, and I think it was my last, this it here. So if you look at, Bitcoin, we tend to think of Bitcoin going up in line with the halving in the 4-year cycle, but it just so happens that it's also in line with, the global money supply, and it pretty much kind of perfectly plays out in terms of, you could see like a big dip. This is Bitcoin in black, right? And this is 2015, 2016 going down, global money supply going down, global money supply picks back up, Bitcoin picks back up. You can see a dip here, money supply dip in Bitcoin, right? And it looks like the same thing playing out. And what do you have here on the global money supply? You've got an uptick coming. You had a drop down in global money supply. So maybe this, and there was another, I think it was Earn posted a video. I don't know. Did you see that video that Earn posted in the Telegram?
Yeah, I watched it. Mm-hmm.
And that was interesting too, because it shows that, global money, there's a lag between money supply and Bitcoin of about, I forget how many days.
40 days?
Yeah, maybe 40 days, which you see the money supply coming down over here, which would be in like December. And this could be, we could be seeing the lag right now playing out. And in the video, the guy talked about money supply picking up now, which means that come March, you should see an uptick in risk assets led by Bitcoin. So, again, when you look at all of the information, we're in the year after the halving. The stock market and the macro is in an overall bull market. You got M2 money supply picking up. I know it's a bad candle on the weekly. We'll see how that plays out. But, everything to me still screams that this is, a very painful time in the market. But overall, the overall trend is up.
Yeah, I think that so I've talked about this a few times too. I know that there's kind of a narrative about like sell in May and go away, and I'll talk about that in a second. But during the bear market, the previous bear market was so fresh in people's heads that it was like they were saying like it had to make another low, it had to double bottom, it had to like they're almost counting on a repeatable black swan or something like that. And I was pretty vocal about you had to believe what you're seeing, and I don't think that we're going back to these low prices again. But it's what was the last cycle that was so fresh in people's heads, and I feel that is like the same thing we're seeing now. And most people in space, they've been in it, they've been hanging around, they got alt bags. This is a frustrating game. This is not easy. That's why you don't know a whole lot of crypto millionaires, because it's not the easiest thing to do. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So that's why I think that people kind of have the mindset that they want to, last cycle, you would have been just as well pretty much to sell everything in May, April, May, whatever. And that's what they want to do this cycle. They're like, I'm tired of this. I want to get rich, even if it's not as much as maybe I'll get later in the year. I'm going to be smart and sell early and call it a day in May or whatever. And normally when everybody's thinking something, that's not what happens. And I've said this a lot too, that I think when we kind of broke out of the basement, not really out of the basement, the leg up from like when it broke out like 25, 30K, that leg up, I think was really if you compare it to the previous cycle before that was really the bear market rally. And they're like 4 months apart. So I think it was the cycle maybe shifting to the right for various reasons, and when you can talk about all kinds of reasons why that could be, but the cycle shifts to the right. So that was actually the bear market rally. And if you look at that like that, then things fall into place and make a lot better sense, at least my opinion. I think that all the, so for one, the previous cycles, they all had their top at the end of the year. And then when you think that cycle's probably shifting to the right some, and then you look at a lot of these macro indicators that are all more pointing to the end of the year, I think that it's still going to play out. It's just not going to play out like we'd all want to and be able to just sell our bags in May and go. I mean, who's going to be left if we all sell in May, And I brought that spreadsheet to share. Like, if you want to, I can touch base on that as well. I know it's a little hard to see when you share something like this.
You're able to zoom in?
Yeah, I think I am actually. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Danny.
Yep. So
these are a lot of these macro indicators that you see all these geniuses on social media talking about. Now they're all M2 money supply experts.
I know.
Now these guys keep up with the DXY every day. They know all about, this price movement and what it does. BTC dominance. That's another thing I talked about. Like, if all season was late 2023, 2024, well, BTC dominance was in a tight channel up. So BTC dominance going up, alts printing huge gains. Doesn't add up, not for like a cycle top blow off or like that was the alt season or anything like that. It just doesn't add up. But these are some of the things that people look at and been talking about a lot. So M2 money supply, DXY, BTC dominance, interest rates, ISM,
which is the business cycle.
It's like a U.S. manufacturing metric or whatever, and then the quantitative policy, and then I put in here the cycle peaks. So it's December, November, and now and even some alts, they were still cooking into January.
They were. Yeah.
People were still buying. People were buying nodes and Bitcoin.
Yeah, the market was still hot. Well, people didn't recognize that we were in a downtrend until you don't realize it until months later. And that's really how the bull market ends, is that you don't realize it until 3 or 4 months later.
Yeah. After the Luna crash happened, I think that most people were kind of like, all right, well, my
party's over.
But until that, people were still buying for sure, And I think that's when some people started to say I was an OMI fudder, because it had nothing to do with OMI at the time. Is because I was saying like people were thinking like 0.003 was a good price for OMI and stuff like that. And I was like, nah, you gotta look at the market structure. Like it's not good. It's not that I don't like the project, because I liked OMI well after that. I just thought like, this isn't a good time to buy anything anymore right now. But you got the cycle peaks at the end and then the spring pullback as well. So in the 2013 cycle, you got a massive pullback, but it went like right back up. And you're not going to see those kind of moves from Bitcoin.
It was young. Yeah.
Yeah. That was 13, so it was over 10 years ago. And then 17, it had 30 to 40% drops in all these months. So I don't even really count that as like a spring pullback, because you just had those pullbacks throughout the whole trend up in 2017. You know what I mean?
Have you gone back and analyzed what those candles look like on the weekly during those pullbacks to see if they look as like bearish as this one?
They look bad. Some of them look like where I would have been like saying the same thing I am now.
Yeah.
Might want to get out of the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you what technical analysis is by the book and all these kinds of things and whatever. But at the end of the day, it is not a guarantee, And, I can look at the Bitcoin index chart here in a minute and go back and look at some of them in 2017. There's one especially that I was like, this one is very bad, but Bitcoin still had another leg up after that.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're at now. I just don't see, coming from the worst, anti-crypto administration ever to the most bullish. Couple that with everything hitting new all-time highs across different markets. S&P was just in a new all-time high last week. If this is the end, it's the end for the whole macro, and we're getting an economic collapse. I don't see that happening just yet. I think that there's more room to go on the macro. So
Yeah, I
me,
agree.
it's always, and then so that to me is how I try to why I can't look at my alt bags. If I look at my alt bags, they're down significantly. All right, from 3 months ago, I'm down a lot. Right, unrealized. If I looked at that, and I would say, what happened? Right, is it over? You got to look at Bitcoin as like the North Star and the one you have to follow, and the macro. If the thesis is Bitcoin is continuing on and will make new all-time highs and there's more room to go, then once Bitcoin recovers, you're also going to recover really fast, right? You're gonna see significant gains on a lot of these, right? So like Rio is down to 25 cents right now. If Bitcoin goes back to 100, Rio is going back to 70 cents with haste. Devi's going back over $1 quickly. A lot of these strong projects with strong communities and good narratives are going to recover quite rapidly.
Yeah, if we've seen a cycle high for BTC dominance and BTC starts to rise with dominance going down, that's what you've seen in the past cycles when it really when the fun part, the banana zone kicked off. That's what you saw in all of them. Well, you didn't have BTC dominance in 2013, but in the last two cycles, that's what started the banana zone with BTC going up and dominance going down.
What's interesting about this last week is that Bitcoin dominance hasn't broken above 61%.
Yeah, it's stuck. Like if I was reading it like an asset, it looks like it's rejecting at that level, like it's reached the top. You got a long wick. It was in a tight bull channel for a long time. There's a lot of things. I know it's not a tradable asset, but if it was, it looks like it's going down. It was like I wouldn't long it. I wouldn't be like, yeah, this looks like a good buy. And then last cycle we've talked about this a few times. The pullback in May, 55%. That's what's fresh in people's heads. But 17, you had this. You just had these pullbacks all the way up. And I'll go look at the index chart here in a second, and we'll look at what some of those candles look like. I think that might be good to do. But just to finish up here,
yeah,
these are all these macro indicators. I don't think these are anything that people haven't heard. Maybe ISM, people haven't heard maybe as many people talking about that, but that is a macro indicator that a lot of people look at. And maybe I'm missing one or two or something that people, but these, I think we can agree, these are some of the main ones that you hear and see about. All right. So M2 money supply was rising in all three of them. But that's the thing. If you look at the M2 money supply chart, it's basically always rising. In 21, it was rising more than it was in 13 and 17. And now, so you saw for really the first time in M2 money supply history, it dipping down, and now it's curling back up. So I think for 25, I think you can say that M2 money supply is going to be rising, and you're just seeing the start of that. But even going back to that, I keep going back to the end of 23, 2024. Okay, well, M2 money supply was sharply decreasing, and the markets were going, I'm going to say parabolic. Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, we hit some 100Xs. So it was doing pretty good at that time with M2 money supply going down. But regardless, I think we can say for 2025, especially the second half of the year, that we can see M2 money supply going up. Then DXY, 13, it was sideways. 17, it was a downtrend. 2021, it was like sideways to up. And if you look at the chart now on higher time frames, I think that most traders would agree with me that it looks like it is probably going to go down, sideways to down, weakness. And you hit Trump saying he wants a weaker dollar. So I think it's reasonable to say, with some of these things that we're projecting for the 2025 cycle, they haven't happened yet, but we're talking about what it looks like and what we can reasonably think based off what the charts look like now. And I think that you can see M2 money supply starting to curl up and that it's going to go up. And I think that DXY, it went up, it fell short of its all-time high when it broke above structure and closed on higher time frames. So that really, like, you almost think it's like a magnet vacuum. They call it a vacuum test. Like a vacuum test up to that all-time high. Didn't get there. So it made a lower macro high and is printing really bearish candles now. And you got the president of the United States saying that he wants a weaker dollar. So I think it's reasonable to say DXY is going to be weak over the second part of the year.
And that's it right there, just for reference. It peaked at like 110, I think. and it's down to 106. And just for reference, that's not like these numbers, that might not look like a big deal, but if you get the DXY into the 90s, that's solid. That's where you want it, in like the low 90s. So you're about a 10% move off, 12% move off on that going to where you want it.
Yeah, after the spreadsheet, I'll look at that chart just real quick to kind of on a higher time frame to show people what I'm looking at there too. BTC dominance. So NA for 2013 chart doesn't go back that far. 17 and 21, that's kind of what sparks it, is when Bitcoin starts going up and dominance starts going down. That's kind of seems like that's a real good indicator that like you're entering the banana zone. And we just talked about that a bit, that I think it's reasonable to think the BTC dominance is made this high and it's going to start going down throughout the course of this year. It was in an uptrend for a very long time, for over a year, 2 years, something like that. It's been in an uptrend for a long time. So I think it's due to go down. I think it's reasonable to say that. Interest rates, 23, they were flat. 2017, they were rising. And 2021, they were flat. And we already know they're going to cut rates this year. How many cuts it's going to be, we don't know, but we know they're cutting rates. So interest rates are going to go down.
I think part of the volatility right now is the market kind of pricing out the March interest rate, or maybe pushing back or cutting out an interest rate because of the tariffs.
Yeah. And I mean, Trump, he's real vocal, or I've heard him say a few times about wanting rates cut. I know he doesn't control the Fed, but he certainly has influence. So I would not be surprised if Powell changes his tune next FOMC even about rate cuts. I don't know. There's no telling.
Yeah.
And then ISM, it was rising in the last three. Now it's above 50 and it just started to rise. Also above 50, that's another thing. It was above 50 and rising and all these. We just hit above 50 and it just kind of started to rise. A little bit like M2 money supply, where it's just starting to curl up. A little further along the M2 money supply. Quantitative easing. 2023 was easing. 17, call it like neutral. 2021 easing. And once again, by most analysts, macro people, like look at these things, it should be easing this year. Some people say that quantitative tightening is already kind of stopped by some of the things that they look at. Then
it doesn't even, just for reference, they don't even need to. I mean, Powell said he's not going into full on QE. It doesn't even need that. If you just stop tightening, it's going to signal to the market and just help.
Yeah, and we could even maybe call this as neutral for the cycle, maybe. So if you look at all these things, all right, let's just say it's easing just for the sake of this, right. But easing to neutral, whatever. So M2 money supply, it's bullish if it's rising. 2025, we project it's going to rise. DXY, it's bullish if it's going down. We project it's going to go down. BTC dominance, it's bullish for cycle, to kick off the cycle terms anyway. It's bullish if it's going down. We project it's probably hit its high, and I think it's going to go down. Interest rates, we know they're going to go down. It's bullish if they go down. ISM, it's bullish if it's rising. It's rising. Quantitative policy, easing to neutral. So it's bullish if it's easing and even neutral, I think. So this is the first cycle. You've had all these macro indicators, a lot of these main ones that people are calling out right now, all lining up in a bullish way. Amazing. Yeah, but that a lot of these things aren't pointing till they won't really be in a full effect till later in the year. However, keep in mind that markets price these things in before they actually happen. So if these things come into fruition at like the end of the year, then prices should have already been rising, pricing these things in before that.
Yeah. And the other thing coupled with all of that is pro-crypto regulation.
That's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah, on a fundamental level.
And one thing that I hate, it's something we weren't really even counting on anyway, but the Bitcoin state reserve bills, they aren't doing very good. 5 have already been
rejected.
Yeah, and 4 of them were in extreme, like some of the strongest Republican states, where you think the Republican states, favor crypto a little more. And, it's like Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, one of the two. So some real Republican states, had already, the bills are already dead. So, that's not great. If it passes in Texas, then I think that might spark some other states to do it. Mississippi, that's another one that was rejected in, very Republican state. But in I think it's Arizona and Utah and Oklahoma, they're all doing pretty good there, the state Bitcoin reserve bills. But that would be a great bonus if states started doing that. But right now, it's not looking the best for that.
Yeah, you do have. I think GameStop is thinking about adding Bitcoin to their asset sheet. I think 500 million. There was another company that added Bitcoin, and I do think we're going to get more and more companies adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet coming on. Frank says, and I was looking at this as we were starting the stream, NVIDIA earnings were above expectation, which is a good sign. There's a saying that markets climb a wall of worry, and people were calling for a recession in 2022 and 2023 and 2024. And the stock market continued to rise and go up in spite of it. And a lot of people got sidelined because they were scared. And I think that right now you're seeing a lot of worry. You're seeing a lot of worry around the tariff situation and, all these things that people are screaming, gloom and doom about. But I think it's an example of, markets climb a wall of worry. And, these are short-term corrections in what is, if you zoom out, a broader uptrend.
Yeah, I don't try to be a geopolitical analyst. He did this last term too, use tariffs as like threatened tariffs for the negotiating thing. What worries me the most, I would say, is say all these BRICS nations especially decide like, you know what, we're tired of you threatening everybody with tariffs. We're all going to gang up on you. And, because he does wave the biggest stick. We're the United States most powerful country in the world, no doubt about it. So he knows he's in the driver's seat when it comes to negotiating individually with these countries. But, you don't want to overplay your hand either. For example, like Canada being the 51st state, he doesn't want that. I think he's saying that like, yeah. Why would he want that? Canada would be it would give a ton of electoral votes to the Democrats because they would win that state. And it's about the size of Texas from like population and GDP standpoint. So it'd be like you're adding Texas, giving them that many electoral votes. Like he doesn't want that. It's just a threat.
He's trolling. It's just like it's funny to him.
That uses a bargaining chip. I think he's like, okay, well, I'll back off all that if you do these other things.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like OG Vault here says, WorldFi, his son's crypto project just loaded up on some more Ethereum this week. Eric Trump is screaming out, buy the dip. Their net worth is tied to this thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many there's so many reasons like this, and like some people could say, well, aren't these the mania things you're talking about, like the top, showing the top and stuff like that? No, they're not. Like not when the things are coming. Once they've happened and they've already passed, then that's when you start talking about those things. Like just say the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill does happen. All right, that might be a great top signal once it's approved by Congress. Especially if it happens later in the year, because I don't think it can even happen till like the summer or something like that. I know there's speculation because Cynthia Loomis, she's always trolling with her tweets. She knows.
Yeah, she's always trying to hype the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of this stuff is going to come later in the year. We got some politics in the chat over here.
Yeah, I don't care who people vote for. I'm worried about, what's best for crypto and myself and whatever, so people can vote for whoever they want to. Free country.
Yeah. So what are you doing right now? Are you just sitting on those sidelines and just watching it, waiting? Are you DCAing? Are you buying the dip?
Yeah, I'm just sitting tight now. I mean, I had I knew it was kind of going down. But most of the things I have are alts at this point, not Bitcoin so much. So I sold a little bit of Bitcoin and then put a limit order at 80K to buy it back. But just to kind of entertain myself, keep myself occupied. I know what it is with these alts. I know the game that I'm playing. So after that starts to approach, I'm not really looking to be too cute with what I do with the alts. I'm looking to buy at good prices. So all the alts that I had bought, at least I bought them at the bottom of their current ranges. So as they broke those ranges, yes, I could be down on some of them, but I'm not as down as the vast majority of people would be. And I preach that a lot. Don't just blindly buy. Buy at the bottom of these market structures that these assets are forming. So for a lot of these things, sure, I'm down on some of them now, but not as down as I could have been. And as long as you still think the cycle is going to happen, because you could sell. I think a lot of people have an all or nothing mindset, and especially if you're stressed out right now, maybe sell some and don't sell everything. Say I don't know, just something like trying to think of like Devi or whatever. Say you're worried about it, you got a big bag of Devi and you sell everything, and then for whatever reason it prints like a big green candle tomorrow. That will stress you out so bad, and then you're not going to want to buy it back and lose position, and then you wait, and then it goes up more, and that is so stressful to people. So I know the game I'm playing. Like Alex Becker, some of the things he's been saying lately, I agree a lot with. Like he said, he's down 27 million unrealized through this. Like, I don't know if he's exaggerating. I don't think he is. I think he's being serious when he said that. But he's like, he's kind of saying some of the same things I am about. Like, if this was easy, everybody would do it. And anybody who makes these ludicrous gains in crypto has to endure these things. I mean, even somebody who knows a lot of technical analysis like myself, yes, I'm looking at Bitcoin and reading that well, but if I'm holding 15 to 20 alts, that's a tall ask to like read and analyze and make the right call on 20 different alt charts when you don't know who's holding what and all these kinds of things and stuff like that. It's just
not as liquid. I mean, people could dump the chart.
But you believe that it's a good project and it'll give you good bull market gains. So if I'm not looking to sell these things until the top of the bull market, then I'm not going to sell until the top of the bull market. I'm not going to bag hold into the bear market, but it's also going to take more than this weekly candle to make me say, okay, that's it, guys. It's over. You're going to at least, even when markets start their bear cycle, you're going to get a dead cat bounce. You're going to get an attempt up again. You're going to at least get that attempt. And it, just like I showed when price did this morning on a lower time frame, when it went up to that range and started to reject, that if you get that case, so when Bitcoin starts its next leg up, watch it for the topping signals. If it does start to reject off of a key level with bearish candles, that could be something telling you to get out. And I don't respect that. I just think there's too many bullish things going on. All these lawsuits and all these American crypto companies are getting dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, you got this crypto czar. They said they want the United States to be like the mecca of crypto. If they have like zero tax for crypto companies and stuff like that, so many of them are gonna come here to the United States. So I think that, some people say they think there's going to be a white swan this cycle. A white swan is going to be like just mega. I don't know about that, but
what are they talking about? A white swan?
Like the opposite of a black swan, like a positive swan that's going to.
I see. Yeah. I think that's hopium also.
But I don't know about that. I mean, it's a more mature asset class and a higher market cap. So just getting those things may be what gives us the actual market cycle that we're looking for. Or that we want to see because of these bullish, all these things we talk about.
There are plenty of things that can, people talk about like what catalyst, what is there to look forward to? I feel like if the market just starts going back up, people will find things to say like why it went up. Just like, it's like price dictates narrative, right? And the price goes down and people are looking for reasons and they say, well, this is happening and like tariffs and all this stuff. If the price goes up, people will say, it's like the lawsuits getting dropped and, macro money supply. So, I don't worry about like needing a catalyst to push it up, so to speak. I think that people are going to find the narrative to satisfy why it's going up.
What was the narrative in late 2023, early 2024?
Yeah.
What was it then? I do think markets can be news driven and they need something to look forward to. But there is things you can look for, like the strategic Bitcoin reserve, all these states, other country adoption,
balance sheets, companies adding it to the balance sheet,
altcoin ETFs, There's a lot of things.
There's a lot of things. No income tax, like you said.
The fact that they're taking dropping these lawsuits like by the day on all these American companies. The only one I haven't seen them drop was against Consensus, and I'm sure it's coming as well. You got people like Michael Saylor and Brian Armstrong in the government's ear, helping to guide them through, these regulatory things, advise them on these issues or whatever. Two huge advocates of the space. I actually don't even like Saylor doing it because he's just so pro Bitcoin. I say sometimes, I don't know anybody who's ever loved anything like Michael Saylor loves Bitcoin.
Yeah, man, I want to be loved like that.
I don't know that I would. Might be smothering. I mean, this guy, he does interviews, and the person will ask him one question, and then he just talks for like a half hour or more about Bitcoin, just like talks to himself.
He's
like
obsessed.
He loves Bitcoin. And I'm going to share the chart, Danny. I look at DXY and the Bitcoin index on some of the things we were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
So this is the dollar chart on the weekly. So this is, zoomed out a bit. This right here was one thing I pointed. This was like when the FTX crash was. So the dollar was going down. I use that as an example sometimes too on some of these macro indicators. The dollar was going down strong when the bottom of the crypto market happened. Mm-hmm. Just shows that, it's not, all these things don't have to be one-to-one correlated. There's a lot of these macro indicators. But in any event, so this was the all-time high. I'm quite sure it's the all-time high. And, strong uptrend, you get the pullback range for a long time. Then it breaks above the range and closes with candles and follow through. Looks like, it's likely to think it's going to come up here to this high, but you're not seeing that. Not that it can't still do that, but I don't see that. These are pretty bad candles. You got the one green candle, immediately three bear ones engulfing it. And this is where the range is. You close back into the range with follow through. You're getting candles trading back in this range. So this is why I think that it's logical to think that that DXY is going to go down. The interest rates, you can say they're going down already. Even if we don't get rate cuts, you're going to get a rate cut this year, but you could still already say that rates are going down anyway. And then the Bitcoin index chart, which is like the history of Bitcoin. So I said I look at what it did in these previous market cycles, especially 17. So this is 17. Now this doesn't look like much, but then when I expand the chart out like this, it was actually a really big move. So I said 74. I think it was actually 84% drop. Wait, no, here it was. It was in here. Yeah. So you have to like really.
What time of year was that?
It was like June. So I would consider that the spring. And this was the big drop. Maybe it was 13. Yeah, 13. That's what I was wanting to see. This was a 74% drop. Okay, so it's 13 that I was talking about. All right, so this was the halving. These blue lines are the halving. This is a great looking breakout. Like if you were around back then, that is like the perfect textbook of what you want to see.
Chef's kiss.
Say again.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah. So you had a nice run up. So this candle was early April, 74% drop. And then it ranged for a little bit, started to go up late summer. And then October, it started the banana zone. So if you would have sold in May and went away here, I mean, it went up a lot after that. And the all-time highs in the, November, December, depending, the last one in December, these like a double top here. So whichever one you want to pick, but highs are later in the year, In 2017, this is the halving. So we had a run up, and this is what I'm talking about. So this is March, significant pullback. June, significant pullback. That looks bigger, but they're about the same. I think they're all 30. Yeah, they're all like 30 and 40%. Then you got the September, another significant one. But these like this candle right here. Yeah, but like, so this candle right here, so it's got a long wick on it, but the body engulfs the body of this one, and then you get another bearish candle with the up wick. I mean, these are bad signs. And then especially after this one, because we said we look at like bearish candle formations in the previous cycles. This right here is worse than what you see now. Definitely.
Yeah. And when did that take place?
June. Here, this is bad. This isn't good either. This isn't as bad as like this down here. It's got a long wick at least, but it's not good. Now here, this one was really bad. This is when I would have, like, if we got this kind of thing, a lot of candles run up, and then this, that's very bad. Bullish outside bar engulfing wick. I mean, it got a little bit of a bottom wick, but not a whole much. It's still a huge body that engulfs the previous body. And still, after that, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are big green bars. 5 more weeks after that of huge gains.
Yeah.
And this is what happens in these cycles. Like, the biggest gains come towards the end. And then last cycle, it was fairly hard to the first top was hard to call from a TA standpoint. Yeah. The second one, not as much. The second one, which I had sold up here based off some other things, but with this candle and then that one, and then especially this one, those are better signs. Here, you could say this right here maybe, but it didn't close below these, and it was like still at like in the 40s then. And then what are you going after this candle? Well, at that point, what's the point of selling then? You worry, so this top was a little bit harder to call. Even here, if you look at it, doesn't close below any. It closed below these, but you still got this over here. They just didn't get like a real clear signal about this top last cycle that it was a top, not a real clear topping signal. I think it was more of a topping signal over here on the second peak. But you see in the previous market cycles, especially, that you get bearish, real bearish moves, bearish formations that maybe it was another asset, if it was a stock or something like that. It may be like, oh, absolutely, have to get out. But, Bitcoin, it's got to kind of put an asterisk beside it. It kind of does its own thing of how it wants to sometimes.
Yeah. I think if this were like later in the year, I'd be maybe a bit more concerned. But being that we're here positioned, still early in the cycle, relatively early, and with everything else like we talked about before, it sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely sucks. It's not easy, but I'm not put off, and I did nibble a little on some things, and it's also a good time, I think, to reallocate, right? So today I talked about Games for a Living's been holding up all right. It's at a $30 million market cap, but Devi came down to, I think, a $60 million market cap. It's at I think it came down to 66 cents. So I moved my GFAL into Devi.
It can be a good time to reset bags. I say that when we're at lows.
Yeah.
And one thing you can do is kind of think of like where you had bought this at, and then look at other assets you like and see like how much maybe they have dropped. So you make kind of right yourself. Well, I'm not losing too bad off allocating this into that.
This is a good time to rebalance, to decide what's down relative to something else. Is something oversold relative to something else that you're still more bullish on that.
Yeah, like TET's one I get like a lot of questions about, and there you go, TET, and is great, strong project fundamentally, but sometimes things just don't pan out that are strong fundamentally. L1s have not done well anyway, but I'm not blaming it on that necessarily. TET has strong fundamentals. It still has strong fundamentals. I think there's some questions with the team. There's a lot of rumors and stuff like that, but I think one reason it just gets highlighted because the price action has been bad. I think you can talk about lots of cryptos in that fashion, but TET it's not panning out, and I started to scale out of it and reallocate it into other things like Zeus is a project I like a lot. TARS AI, talk about that a lot. So TET's
been absolutely hammered.
Yeah.
But Medicaid's been holding up. It's
Probably holding up better than anything.
Yeah, Medicaid's been solid, man.
Especially for a gaming project. For gaming has been abysmal. Like Corpo and OTK, they just every day down 10, 15%, whatever. I mean, gaming's just been going down for a while. Anyway, playable games, gosh, that's really in the toilet. So Medicaid to hold up as well as anything that I'm holding, and it being in the gaming sector, I mean, hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I think they've been constantly building. They launched their new website, V2 of their website, and I think they've hinted at some other things that are coming. They're over at ETH Denver. I know Russ is over there with some of the team members. So I'm looking for them to show continued strength.
Yeah, and things get a lot of people like myself, they go off of chains, what they think is going to be good on Solana. And then the most common thinking is Base is going to be the second most successful chain. They're clearly the top contender, top gaming project on Base. They stay so active. They give out rewards, like actual rewards in their gaming. They got an army of people on social media soldiering for them. I mean, I'm not trying to, obviously we're Medicaid ambassadors, but I was shilling Medicaid way before that. And in comparison to other gaming projects, I'm sorry, it's hard to make a case against Medicaid in comparison to other gaming projects, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Solana? Been hit particularly hard. A lot of FUD around it with, it's like it's Jeet City over there, and a ton of Libra launched over there, Melania, and all these other things. What are your thoughts on Solana?
Well, big token unlock release March 1st too. The Solana website says it's 7.5 million tokens. There's a few articles, one by Binance, that says it's 11.5 million. And what these tokens are, they're not FTX. If you hear that they're FTX and Alameda tokens, then that's incorrect. They're the tokens that they auctioned off, that FTX and Alameda auctioned off. So two VCs bought most of them. One was like Galaxy Digital or something like that. And then it's another one. The two VCs that bought the majority of them, and their prices were like, I think $69 a soul and like $70 something a soul. So, I mean, they're up for sure, but they didn't get like, like bottom, like $10, $20 soul. It wasn't that low. So I think Solana is good. It's went up a 30x though, so keep that in mind.
Yeah,
that's pretty significant from its bottom. How much you expect things to go? Maybe you look at ETH last cycle and what kind of gain it did, and that gave you some kind of metric. Solana, I still think it's fine. I mean, how can you argue against it? All these metrics, it's completely taken ETH to the woodshed with trading volume and all these kinds of things. And if you would have said that during the bear market, people would have laughed at you. Like, so Solana had eclipsed ETH a few days of NFT trading volume, and you think that's good, that they're just getting some more volume on some random days. And now, ETH wish they could get the volume of Solana. So I don't think Solana is going anywhere. To how high it goes up this cycle, I don't think it's going to go to $1,000. I think too many people are saying that. I don't think it's really worth to buy something that's already done a 30x. I just think there's better options out there. I think Sui is a great, like, if you're tired of like some of these mid cap alts, because in the 300 to 700 ranking range, which is where most of ours are, I kind of feel that's the sweet spot, but it's going to be more volatile. So if you're kind of tired of that, Sui is probably a good option for you. It's under $3 now, or it was last time I looked. Just buy Sui. You probably you won't take as big of hits there. Or Chainlink, that's another one. I mean, it's a little bit older coin, but it's low. It's probably going to do well this cycle. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah. Uno Sean in the house. What's good, brother? He didn't notice the market was down. He's been numb for years.
Yeah, he's like me. He's dead on the inside. Markets. I take 6-figure hits for breakfast.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I actually did a little buying, and if I had more money that was disposable. The problem is also a lot of people are just out of cash, man, and that's what's also frustrating, because they see things at these prices. Not only are they down bad and unrealized gains, but They're out of cash.
Yeah, man. If you go, and I talk about this sometimes, all these Coles and influencers and whatever, just like look at the current move, for example. Sorry, this thing's being so laggy. The first time you get a red candle, like here, buy the dip, here, buy the dip.
Yeah.
That's what they say, buy the dip. I never say that. Let it form the structure it's going to buy and buy at the bottom of that structure. So for me, and that I put out to people or whatever, to buy, like in here. So if you did that, yes, you're down right now because it broke below that.
Yeah.
But you're a lot better off than chasing these green candles up at the top of the zone, which is what most of retail is doing. It's not that you don't want to buy after green candles. It's all about what it looks like. When I talk about these things, it reminds me a lot of times of that scene from Boston, Mass, when he's talking to his son. He's like, it depends on what it looks like, who was there, and all these things. That's what it is with these charts. It's not that you don't want to buy after green candles, but you want it to be a breakout. So like in the consolidation that we had here, if this candle here had broke to the upside, like close like here, something like that, yeah, you want to buy that. You don't want to buy this green candle here. Or even when the market was up here, I said this in the stream, I said, no, this is not breaking up. This is not what a leg that's going to break above the range looks like. Like if you get this leg and it rejects and then you form some kind of consolidation pattern here and it's staying towards the top of the range, then maybe. But even then we just didn't see that. So so that's how I try to do things. I never say buy the dip. Matter of fact, I started making a Twitter thread about how you should like remove that from your vocabulary, because that mantra that gets drilled into people's heads, buy the dip. That's why people buy the downtrend into the bear market. That's why. And they drill these things into people's heads. It's like they brainwash them. Buy the dip, diamond hands, hodl, we all gonna make it. And they drill that into your head. And then that's when the bear market starts. And that's when it's going down, when everyone thinks that it's still going to go up. Not now. And maybe it's different. Maybe it's just the asset class has matured. And then, people know that alts are kind of shit and don't really do much and whatever. But it seems like just last February, March or whatever, 2024, people kind of had the outlook that alts were the future and wave of the future and all these things, stuff like that. So instead of making change, once price starts going up, people can get that alt mindset back for sure. And like I said, don't forget there's a larger percentage into alts this cycle than you've ever seen before. And it's not because there's 10 million alts or whatever. It's that's like if you take past the first 1,500, probably that's probably like that much of BTC dominance. It's not much.
Yeah, I think when I looked at people that they talk about 32 million coins or whatever it is, that's a fake news chart. When you look at the 6,000th coin, it's like a $15,000 market cap. No one's buying that. No one's buying anything. You're getting really high risk into really high risk at like 3,000, right? So that means that 31.99 million tokens are dead and dust. And I never subscribed to that narrative that 32 million tokens this cycle. Crypto Banter guy talks about that. No money's flowing to those. And now this time in the market, this pain that everyone's feeling is killing off even more of those projects, right? You're going to see a whole bunch of other, meme projects or whatever that don't have communities that aren't coming back.
Yeah, you got this washout.
It's a cleansing time.
Yeah, you got that with gaming projects, because I said I thought the gaming market was oversaturated, and then you got a lot of them get washed out after last spring, like through the summer and stuff like that. So it happens. It's part of it. Somebody's videos I watch sometimes, Crypto Seth, I think he's a pretty smart guy. He did a good video yesterday. I think he does a good job picking alts and stuff like that. I think he knows technical analysis, but maybe not to the level as some people, because he's been calling for bounces and bottoms and stuff like that. But he was kind of saying some of the things like Becker and the things we're talking about too. This is crypto. It's the volatility that shakes the people out, and it's the being able to stay through that makes people rich. That this isn't anything that's not par for the course with crypto and what we've seen in bull markets before.
Yeah, and if you love the volatility to the upside, then you have to tolerate and stomach the volatility to the downside. That's just part of the game. And I mean, mentally, I knew that that Bitcoin could lose 89,000 or whatever, and even go into 70s, right? So I've been kind of prepared for that, and so it hurts, but when you prepare yourself for it, when you envision it, I think you're better able to stomach it, and it doesn't shock you or come as a surprise. So, you can't have one without the other. They're, par for the course.
Yeah, and I'm not somebody sitting here saying all these bullish things and putting out hopium. The weekly candle does not look good, and that's the main. I think in crypto, the weekly is the main chart you want to go off of, and it doesn't look good. But then we looked at the previous cycles, and one bearish candle, you've gotten that plenty of times, big with a big body closing towards its low. Wasn't a death sentence then because of where it was in relation to the market cycle. So if the market cycle doesn't play out, we never had a chance anyway. And yeah, I would have lost a lot of money, but I'm not in this for new car money. I can get that money, back or whatever. I mean, it sucked taking me a few years or whatever, but if you want the mega millions, you can't win if you don't play. If you don't have big bags of these things and all that. And I know some people will say, well, just say I've put like $200,000 in over the couple of years, and now that's down to 40,000. Somebody could have just walked in the door right now with 40,000, have everything I have. Theoretically, yes, it's a very low percentage chance that anyone is going to do that. They have to get in the market. They have to know it. They have to feel comfortable putting lots of money in and stuff like that. So, don't beat yourself up too much if you've been in the market a few years and you're down 6 figures, even whatever the case is. You can't win if you don't play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that most of these alts as long as the market cycle plays out anywhere relatively close to it has in the past, that the highs you saw for most of these alts in last spring, they should have clipped those and then go into price discovery and print much bigger gains. Should. It's not a guarantee. Nothing's guaranteed at the end of the day. We don't know for sure that Bitcoin's going to go back up into price discovery and alts are going to blow off. But even the current move we're seeing now, it hasn't broke my confidence that we're still gonna get all those things.
Yeah,
later in the year.
Yeah, my thesis is the same. And sometimes you just the best thing to do is nothing and just, wait it out. But this is part of the game. It's a blood sport, man. Crypto is a blood sport, and it's not easy, man. It's not easy, especially if you're attached to if you're like attached to money, and if it bothers you to see the numbers go down, this is not the space for you.
Yeah, I try not to look at a lot of my wallet balances every day when it's going down. Just what's the point, And I remind myself I wasn't going to sell in February anyway.
Yeah,
not in March. I never would have planned to sell anything in February or March anyway, or very little. Maybe if I see something that's like an obvious thing that's overbought or something like that, like Zeus, when it was at $1, I sold, a bit of it and stuff like that. And then I bought it back at like 60 to 70 cents, and it was down in the 20s now. But that's why in these conditions, it's best to just let the market cycle play out, get in the projects you believe in, diversify. And every cycle, the peak's been at the end of the year. So, and then all these macro things point to the end of the year. I think it's lining up that even though I don't want this, I want to sell in May and go away and call it a day too. But unfortunately, I don't think that's what we're going to see this time.
Yeah. I mean, I will be selling on the way up. And I probably will be, like, if we get a pump into May, I'm going to be selling a decent amount, anticipating, we're not going straight up. If we're peaking at the end of the year, let's say we do like, my bags do a 10x in the spring, which has happened previous cycles. I'm going to be taking some profit and anticipating that if it's not the end, then we're peaking in November anyway. We're going to see a sizable dip at some point. And if I want to put some chips back on the table, I can do that. So there are a bunch of different ways to play it depending on your risk tolerance.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And even somebody, I like Jordan Cameron. I think he's real good. I enjoy watching his stream in the evening. He's like married to he's going to sell in May. He said he's going to sell 80% of his bags in May. That he thinks that's will be
That's wild.
Yeah.
Lark Davis said the same thing, that he's going to sell in May also.
Yeah, I don't think he said he was going to sell like everything like that. But I think
saw one video where he said he's going to sell a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watch his streams sometimes too. So I think a lot of people, feel that way. But if everybody felt that way, then who's going to be left after May? And one thing I do think,
the thing is though, but it is seasonality, and the thing is, like, typically in all markets, the summer, there's a lull in the summer, and then you see a resurgence in Q4. So that's where that came from. That's not even from crypto, right? That's from like the stock market. Sell in May, go away. It just so happens that in crypto, we typically historically have seen pumps into May, June, and then a big dip, and then again fireworks end of the year, bigger.
Yeah, and because I've said it a bunch of times, you heard me say it, that I think it's just so fresh in everyone's mind this cycle because of last cycle that's why they're like really harping on the May thing. And it may happen, but or at least have a pullback, and you may be able to buy back lower. But I think that people are just counting on that too much, and it's because of what I said, they want to get out of this shit. They want to dump their alt bags. They don't want this anymore. It sucks. They don't want to keep doing this.
And that's where the psychology comes in, right? Because that's right now. That's how people are feeling right now when they're frustrated. But you're not going to be feeling that way when your bags are pumping 20 to 30% every day. Your greed's going to kick in. Euphoria is going to kick in. And a lot of people, most people, have a hard time selling because they're afraid to miss the next 20 to 30% pump. Because when you do get an alt season, that glorious, thing, it's an 8 to 12 week period where you're getting like big, gains on a daily basis.
Yeah, the whole meme coin thing, the one thing I will say about that, like, I think it's overstated the amount of coins or whatever, but I do think that it has fried a lot of good people's brains and created a Jeet culture within people, because they either they believed in some project in last cycle and they got hurt by it, it didn't go up, they held in the bear market, whatever, it could be partly that, and then it could be playing the meme coin game and stuff like that, and people just taking such losses that, like, okay, if I'm just up 2 times the money or something like that, I'm just getting out right then. And if too many people in the space have that mentality, then it will be difficult for things to mature and pump. But I think maybe that's what this is kind of setting up for, that when things do pump, that all these jeetlets, that people that have brain damage now, that they're going to jeet out of their bags super early, but there's not going to be, they're going to get overtaken by the new money coming in, market makers trying to pump the market and stuff like that, and that they're going to get left behind. They're going to be in so much pain that they're going to rebuy at higher levels. I think that's what we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's quite possible, and that's what this market will do is it's max pain and push things around and fuck up people. And I think I always focus on psychology. I think that's the most important thing, is just getting your head right and understanding how these markets work, because it's not easy.
Yeah, hopefully the Jeet army won't be enough to overcome all these other things and market makers trying to take it up and stuff like that. But it is something that I worry about a little bit, because
I don't think so. I think that there's so much money on the sidelines, so much in stables on the sidelines.
And that's why I think that they could get swallowed up when they Jeet out early and be like left just like, gosh, I've messed up so bad. I think that's very possible as well.
Yeah. Well, I got to go catch some dinner with the family. But great talk, Ron. I want to thank you for coming on, as always. Thanks to everyone in the chat. It's a rough market, man. Hang in there. You get through this. And, I do think that, we'll see some better days ahead. We'll keep you guys up to date, and follow Ron on socials. And his Telegram is available. If you want to join that, great information, and great daily TA in there as well. Follow Monex, follows YouTube, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Later.